Hello, welcome to this YouTube live stream, especially fellow YouTubers. People of the human volume, this live stream is for you. Nobody's here yet, so skip to it if you get this part because I'm trying to wait to people. Can anybody hear? It's YouTube algorithm. Please ascend. Let me put some activity into this thing. Please subscribe to the YouTube channel of Anthony Wall. So here you are, boxing. See, every modern nation's name is recorded being and having been used remotely. This is also relative to all. You can understand all things in the news by understanding the answers that nature shows us, where and how other things, others, ourselves were blamed for things our founders told us to blame on the torture of themselves, the extortion of themselves, and on the fact to be nature slavery of themselves. Or they would be syntactically sensed through our own, everywhere the human species body has been since semi ancient times, since before modern religions, messengers, the only thing they were about together commonly, sanely, besides most things, in other words, no, is they were about the sciences that had already been abridged, tactically abridged. That means that the uses of the sciences' names had already been. Other self-valued uses of themselves other than could simultaneously defend that and afford how nature employed our names to be used. The differences of ground locations, voicings. Now everything has been a landscape theater. There are proofs since latter semi-ancient times, and that even then they could not fathom how anyone could get the entire humanity to forget how to cause real evolution's fruits and gifts, means out of nowhere that make evolution everywhere, and or the means to check to see if it's going to be a criminal in citizen's nature of positive treatment, and that used can be used to discern how to make hyper positives. In other words, we can make the system too, and then pass it around state to state, and it'll just get better, and it just keeps coming back to the states. Everything gets easier, but we have to be leveraged. See, in other words, when they talk about law and order, they left out and they're leaving out. While they're leaving out, their value haven't been left out. How when they speak for the differences of the branches of government, the overt criminal enterprises and the private ones, sustained before our founders were even born, northern colonies and southern, that had been employed. Uses of that tactical ulterior from how nature communicates with difference. We have the same color eyes, black pupils, whites of eyes simultaneously. We have different color eyes. There are exceptions. Some people have the same color eyes with the exceptions part. But the part about exceptions, the exception nature goes beyond that. It's inseparable from how nature uses a special difference to communicate. Not just Earth's a special difference, but for example, overall grouped and finite. We are no longer its system with those three words, all values, all words, but so those words. And it demonstrates with force space nature transfer. And nature appreciates the special difference. But see, now nature, there are exceptions and exception natures were made as the names of modern countries, as locations, areas, and states, forcing any individual leader. While that don't only known to the difference of that or when the leader's forcing it, and how to discern the difference. Not one is guilty or the other. If you want to do it right, see, forgiveness is to let the hyper invisible lead. The hyper invisible reason why. Reason needs to appreciate. Logic needs to appreciate why and how there are more than one name for each verb. Why and how every subject, even group subjects and all together, there's more coming in to temporary space slash lasting space nature. There's more relativity. See, there are five distinct identities of relativity to the body, complete of time. The part past that we know is true always. The part now we know is true always. And the part that has yet to come, but we know is true always now. And with the relativity to its identity relationship to itself, and the value of that. For example, we know tomorrow the sun will come up. We know the spring is when we should be ahead of the spring, preparing to reveal nature's fruits and gifts with that side of it. Not just for industries. We're not supposed to entertain industries, leaving that as part of the torture, extortion, slavery method of everyone to leave out that of our founders or to measure that person using correlation. But our correlation is all the ways that the branches of government make convictions with their words and with the uses of their natures and mannerisms as psychopaths, because they were a certain type of victim that came through campuses and the differences of them. This method uses how nature uses differences as all employments naturally. But then, see, now there's a hypernatural where it's negative to itself as criminal insidiousness nature, where it's only natural as criminal insidiousness nature. Is necessary. This is about the difference between positive as only as criminal insidiousness, but let alone this breaching method employ identities of criminal insidiousness natures of positive treatments syntactically used as collusions with the overt negatives and other natures of negatives that the colonists and that the Native Americans overtly, obviously the Native Americans, they already been sustained needing to counter each other and to fight with each other or ignore each other when everyone was needing to react to or not react to, the separation of humanity from the what nature was communicating, what humanity communicated without the influence of criminal foreign influences, criminal insidiousness, entertained with descriptions of that. So there are truths that are shown to use for lies. Where and how our campus, like Central Connecticut State University, has roles intercities with predicate acts, with kids and with adults, with their victims slash hyper victims. But if you try to treat it that way, which is, for example, everyone was a victim slash hyper victim, where you were supposed to address honestly, leaving out nothing, take seriously how a breaching method employed black pupils and whites, or the color black and the color white, to mean other than they mean. And it sustained that. And it sustained roles with uses of truths for lies for itself. Because now there's additional motivations for people to be styles of factual nature as criminal insidiousness. And this is uses of that differences of all these other different distinct identities of criminal insidiousness and of itself. The hyper archetypal criminal enterprise, if you will. And so I am not a lawyer, but this is the anti hyper archetypal criminal enterprise act, which is greater than war crimes. That which is involved with obfuscating slash hyper obfuscating as three identities of volume. If I said obfuscating and hyper obfuscating, that would be two identities of volume. Where as the subject, where value is nature slash nature is value, and the opposite sequence nature slash simultaneous nature is simultaneously slash hyper simultaneously. Conversely, conversely slash hyper conversely true per where and how nature shows us. That means to answer questions. It is distinctly five identities of order bound, and three distinctly ways it is three bound, because how it is about grouped difference slash S. How it is about individual, how the species body of individual bodies is about the individual finite. Its value slash S. Its plural values come from the species body, individual or the individual. Slash, the differences, locations, areas, states. See, those differences, this breaching method employed them syntactically to be used and then defended, used with criminally form as logic and as nature of logic, as styles of logic, that relative to nature's demonstrations and employments of our syntax. Again, so everyone would be able to agree with these short words. We are hypernative, we are the hypernative system that is abridged. There is an identity of hyper simultaneous. See, the people first who come in and who agree about things serious or don't, so even people agree, they're going to leave the connections out. There are so many different identities of the law who want to speak for the law regarding how they were taught to. This is their job. This is their case law. We focus on this is how these subjects get separated and stay stupid, leaving out exceptions, and with overt, simultaneously slash insidious psychopaths speaking about emotions and or about motivations of others. And we are not being allowed to demonstrate how this is recorded because of the involvements of criminally foreign influence readings of precedents and of statutes and of reality and of all words and of the value of nature and of the definitions in the dictionary. Still abridged. The nature of debate is criminally foreign influence measured and maintained self-value, having been at the same time criminally foreign influence tactically delusions wrought slash tactically delusions wrought, because where the nature is important too, because then if you tell people their delusions wrought, they're going to take it as a name and they're going to lie about your premises, or they're going to lie about the relativity of their motivation because of how the informing bodies are involved. Foreign bodies were are involved here and there in the fake difference too. This breaching method measures them speaking for difference. Suits and ties, exceptions. They can't defend themselves and afford discern properly what came first with American history, what came first with the Old Testament, what came first with the Quran. I didn't even read the Torah. You can tell they're not they're in collusion with blaming other things other themselves in the breaching method too that caused slavery. Their nature shows us the answers. The most probable thing too, where we have to begin, we have to have theory at points too, is a transnational criminal enterprise realized it was going to get caught before it was caught or realized. And then it realized the only way it could get out of it was to do crazy things and get other people to blame other things, others herself, for things that it caused and would cause more. And then to get them to self defend that. And then to build on that and make people do that more and more. And extend that until people were defending uses of the names of the sciences tactical terrier from how they could then afford to discern needs to be used, those names, and motivations relative to descriptions of that too needing to be discerned. Were they the descriptions and or the difference of who's guilty with that? See, innocence is, I mean, guilt with the law and with forgiveness, where religion's about the law. It's about how the voices of the law and or the overt criminal enterprises and or the private ones and or the intelligence bodies of countries individually grouped and together. There are already criminally foreign influence uses of groupings of humanity tactical terrier from, I mean, in other words, how they were defending them and voicing the significance of that. Tactical terrier from how nature asks us to appreciate grouping. So, in, in ways greater than and more finite than math appreciates grouping symbols as a volume science, but then as that volume science, why and how it works. The valuable sequence is ignored with the beginning of the Old Testament, the part we're supposed to only know up to there. If people want to debate the other part of it, there are only two parts. In other words, how people are using, there's the tree of knowledge of good and evil, and there's the tree of life. How people's definition of life and of, in other words, they're not being honest if they want to, as they're using, quoting over. For example, Judge Napolitano has a YouTube channel called Judging Freedom. And he, with a whole bunch of other people, have their own YouTube channels. And then people have their own, they go together with a YouTube channel. And YouTube makes more features that will probably be coming out where we could be doing, think they said that, in other words, if they don't have it out already, where you could do a, on one side and they're going to connect you on the other side of the screen with someone at a different location. And if we could do this mobile, it'd be nice, vaccines. Because, see, they've been all location slash S, everywhere the species body is. When I say location, it is being and has been used remotely. And where and how it was used remotely, no one fathomed. Because ever since some ancient times, the real causes of negative value nature progressions acts nature is one thing. They were blamed on other things, others themselves. And that was shown, there are needs for everyone who's formally speaking for the law and informally to value that when in defenses of themselves as syntax nature, when not realizing even the roles with it, how foreign bodies were here and there, also with a hyper foreign body. So even where and how there are foreign bodies mixed with listening to our conversations from the youngest ages through our own too, and the difference of that exploited. We are this value slash value progression. We go here to the store. We go home. We go to work. We are measured tools by a breaching method that measured from before computers, before our founders were born. They entrenched identity grounds assignments of the human identity slash IES to be systems tactical terrier, to be identities of intelligence and or of artificial intelligence before the formal definition of that word to be roles with criminally influenced uses of database locations and or other locations and or the relativity of that. This is also where and how theories on relativity, all theories on relativity, are used to measure and maintain left out the identity of hyperrelativity, the identity of hyper-simultaneous, observed appreciation of that scientifically, observed scientific observation of the hyper-simultaneous that reveal the eyes, why there are two eyes, all exception nature, of humanity and of other bodies, of other creatures, other species bodies of other species. And they too have individual finite, group difference slash S, course, male, female, and equality of diffusion. It's male, female, and the shared value of that, which is that one, a volume that is inseparable from all others. And each identity of volume has a distinct identity or relationship to itself, per where and how it is hyper additional nature, where and how only more hyper additional nature is capable of being. All exceptions in exception nature, for example, as temporary nature, they come with how nature uses exception in exception nature, additional ways, hyper additional ways, distinctly from, but also non distinctly from the ways we know it uses it. For example, where it was, what actually happened before anyone was born, before the smallest finite detail of America's ancient republic, still criminally foreign influenced, abridged, of other modern countries, foundations individually grouped in together, and groupings made from that. There's a guy named Bob Chase with a Whiting Forensics recorded express demonstrated confirmed. He has a Phil Cololo involved with him, with falsified police reports and with tactical delusions that are mixed with criminally foreign influence, fact treatment nature, quality aspects in nature. Sought me out to make this up with a print and make things up too with a principal child offender that they forced by pretending also their roles with state police through time with Whiting Forensics and FBI with a witness protection program and election locations involved with other criminal enterprises, including on Facebook. See, the intelligence community reacts on Facebook, and they have all these different agencies and things. Box things. I'm gonna get you. I'm gonna look. I'm gonna get one. I'm gonna put some links on here. So, because there's I said good links. This people. So now here's a video I want to show you guys. This is a video by Judge Napolitano's Judging Freedom website. In the video section would be Professor Jeffrey Sachs, the dangers of unbridled war. So Judge Nepal picks foreign experts on geopolitics and on identities, therefore on names. See, but all the experts and the differences of that and of overt criminal enterprises, private ones, and the differences of between themselves that have been self-valued, blaming other things to other themselves for what our founders told us to blame on a breaching method, a hyper archetypal criminal enterprise. They communicated, even though they didn't say this. If you will, I am not a lawyer. They also communicated for us to demonstrate how the lawyers were also using criminally foreign influence, fact, equality aspects in natures and motivations narratives, leaving out the roles with entrenched many countries. Central Connecticut State University has many countries involved with names that grew up near each other, near everyone, other people in Wethersfield. Wethersfield has roles with identity theft, frauds, and slanders with foreign and domestic military and intelligence, judges, prosecutors, their family members, and as victims, hyper victims, victim predator, hyper predator. And the difference of that and the overt criminal enterprises and private ones at the same time, switching names, forging names, putting fake motivations, not just with foreign bodies. And the differences of that with them also, in other words, they have a whole bunch of countries involved with the campuses, and they demonstrate that they're ducking behind that and lying about why and how, because they're also confessing it by and pretending others simultaneously by planting evidences. So, people on my street that were on my street at the time in Wethersfield, Connecticut, they have roles individually grouped in together with predicate acts through time, intercities next to the campuses and with the names next to them, like a Robert Rodriguez, and he's involved with houses along Route 3. Two times he made statements to me about his roles with the people involved. And I did not respond at all. They use a field near my house through time to plant evidences, investigations and investigators, and their locations, and all the difference. The difference of that is all being and have been employed criminally foreign influence. Police chief Sawyer and self, and with Russians, and with people from Asian countries, and people from Italy, involved with medical corruption, with mental health, logic, therefore nature, and delusions. They are delusions raw. They've been fabricating transcripts with people to get away with this. There have been criminally foreign influence readings of statutes and directions to the national/international news, strictly distinctly from their roles with the names on and off the locations of intercities news. And the difference of the names next to their locations involved with them with predicate acts and the names on the campus, on the news locations, and or their sources. See, this is a method that locked rolls with what one of the things that, even if they made it up, witch trials. One of the things it was about, besides slavery, against the slavery method against our founders, sickly distinctly against everyone else. So how come we did not hear about this? Oh, because I'm looking at, I'm even saying, usually you see yourself in the picture, but I'm looking at I'm bringing this back. The camera's still, okay, a one of the sources of Judge Napolitano. And so they ask each other questions all the time of this and that and Israel. And also, I heard in the news, and I believe they bring up in this video uses of the sentence from the river to the sea, Palestine, or some will be free, I believe, or something like that. But and then there was attacks on that because they're saying, oh, but they're leaving out the Israel. The Earth's identity of relationship to itself and the only increasing value of that is a system that had and has nothing to do with where and how the value for things like negotiations were employed by the breaching method, where there's a difference where that's one of the things, the reasons why they need to have unit groups of unity. See, this showed them. Look, this measured what our founders had to communicate to us through cipher, leaving the fake stuff written about them self-valued because they had to hide their roles. Everyone, including our founders, who had to counter-extort the other one. They had to make up a fake unity because the breaching method, the slavery method, to measure everyone from abroad, you know, that they had everyone hurt each other first, and that was sustained. They had they had roles with the people who would do damage control, help the people as collusions with it too. A quality of fact human nature as hyper criminal insidiousness, if you will, is generating more and more criminal insidiousness natures like wrongdoers, wrongdoing, natures of behind criminal insidiousness natures of Boolean logic, like A therefore B, and where exceptions exception nature is relevant and relative, and where how being hyper invisible but still discernible distinctly from how it is invisible but still discernible. It is also functional. So there are 1/3/5 identities of possession over every subject. For example, the value of what actually was true first, before the smallest finite detail was that, before those group details, and before the progressive ones. And there are two other identities of time that we know we don't know about, but we know that, and we know that truths come from that too. Though. And even if everyone agrees to lie and believes other about the past, if people are lying about the sequence, nature demonstrates this. So little boys and girls in New York City who live in towers, whether whether they are wealthy or whether they are poor, economically, automatically they are wealthy slash hyper wealthy. But see, per where and how nature wants and needs us to use these words. But see, we have to be led by the hyper invisible because we have to be, and that means we have to be able to appreciate constantly the identity, its identity relationship to itself, and the means to discern that is by constantly looking at what's positive and negative simultaneously. If you're doing it the right way, it's positive everywhere at once. It does, and it values how we could discern how the differences between the criminal insidiousness as the governments of countries A through Z, and or as the intelligence of countries A through Z, or the overt criminal enterprises or private ones, or criminally foreign influenced quality aspects in nature, to the identities of uses of logic of, in other words, we have black people's eyes at the same time. We have the same color eyes, different color eyes simultaneously because nature communicates answers this way. Shows us how to describe its distinct, non distinct, and simultaneous slash hyper simultaneous identity of relationship to itself, and the only increasing value of that, with the extent of itself that we can discern, as three increasing volumes equally, because of what it looks like, being a complete identity inside of one, that we can only discern to an extent, but wherever we can discern in the slightest extent of reality, its complete identity of relationships from itself, unabridged, is inseparable from that. And so we could entertain systems other. Everyone could agree, countries A through Z, to be and stay systems other. But it will demonstrate with negative value nature progressions, acts, natures, and forced space nature transfer, not death, forced a special difference transfer as your own, as Earth's, as more hyper additional ones taken from here. There exceptions, exception nature. Heaven and hell are scientific values with pantheism having more probably been about the identity of the hyper simultaneous that the ancients demonstrably, more probably and increasingly demonstrably, more probably, and demonstrably, the ancients appreciated together difference totally other than we do because it's showing us. It's how it communicates. It answers our question. So it's how reason works, how logic works. Our countries, individual grouped and together, leading up to the World Trade Center, they had roles with mental diagnosis and with methods of fabricating audio, fabricating transcripts and evidences, and coupling with that the kids and the adults of foreign and domestic intelligence, of overt criminal enterprises, private ones, and of insidiousness uh, to to the names A through Z with logic relative to other being and having been communicated for our founders than they communicated for us to communicate. So, for example, with the beginning of the Old Testament, before it gets to the part about the knowledge of good and evil and the tree of the knowledge of good and evil and the tree of life and the generation of the names and the generation of Adam and Eve, it says the only part that has to be understood is right here where the names of the people of sciences will come together. The only. And for example, with the Quran, it says the only thing someone has to do to be a good Muslim is to agree honestly or not. Are you going to call the scientific value, not just the religious value, the scientific value of the hyper simultaneous, Allah or not? And all they have to do is be honest about that. If they're dishonest and they don't want to believe in it, the Quran tells the people of Islam to love those people. And it tells the person who agrees to be a Muslim honestly, if they know for the slightest reason they shouldn't pray in a mosque, they shouldn't pray in the mosque. It qualifies as the only part of the Quran. See, they knew already the human names and their styles of logic, natures of logic, and interests, value nature system. They wouldn't be able to afford the difference too. The difference between the church or the preventing the understanding the Bible properly, or the people attacking them, is also used, and that's being haven't been self-valued by themselves and others because their identities are being haven't been employed. You know, identity, theft, fraud, slander, roles, needs, and natures, putting fake motivations with foreign bodies because through foreign bodies. And the difference of that is used. Sometimes it is the foreign body, but it's increasingly where no one wants to be, but they are anyway. Collusion. But there's increasingly exceptions too. The only way we can get this right is to deal with things proper and on time. So each year since I was a kid, every campus I went to and names next to it have roles with identity theft, fraud, slander, method. So they've been attaching the kids and their parents to fake communications with each other and with others, and to change communications with each other and with others. And we changed nature of communications with each other and with others, and to fake the motivations planting with foreign bodies, where and how investigators, they never stop being used criminally for an influence. And we have this as one of the answers to why and how people could leave out something as serious as where we have black pupils and white survives, and a breaching method employed other to be spoken for that, to be communicated for that, and a communicated roles, needs, and natures to sense if anyone tells on that, and to make things up about them, and to self value how they could get away with it by having others already having done that before people took their oaths, interbranch, interstates, into everywhere the species body stands. There were roles with predicate acts with facts methods. Black pupils, no. Each body. We also know that other things, others, or selves was blamed and are blamed for the real causes of the psychopath. Positives in response to that, and or the negatives, because they are collusion. Keeping that identity of relationship to ourselves as natures, and as the one that being used remotely from being discerned. Forgiveness is so we can allow that, because that's where evolution, fruits, gifts means from nowhere come from. So, in other words, and through time, people are putting more in fake, finite details, hiding what came first. Most importantly, hiding how functional it is, how reason works with the hyper invisible being distinct from the invisible but still discernible. Again, that being why we have, for example, 5 names for a verb that are about the one way, the 1/3/5 ways individually grouped. The um the verb is hyper additionally valued. The sixth name for a verb is about this. It's a sixth name. There are 6 names, but they're about the 1/3/5 ways it is grouped, 3 ways and 5 ways, and where and how more and more identities of infinity nature slash forever nature are being made. Also bound 1/3/5 ways. Automatically temporary positive, and to an extent, all parts of space slash existence is its body. Positive to an extent, where it is making more of that too. Unobstructed though. No hindrances. We could be systems other, but a special difference is force from here leads to bodies. For space nature transfer. Nature being its identity of relationship to itself, and the value of that. Yes. I tell Best Boxings, I did not read this. I deciphered this. There are proofs that this is why. I didn't read no. But why there are 5 names for the solidus and or the slash. Solidus slash solidus. SOLIDUS. It's another name for the slash. And I believe there are three more names for them. Black Sings. I teach us things belong. Each campus stands abridged. Appear, begin. Come on. So I did things to get people to react syntactically, to make a description of instances and of names and of reality, knowing that we're going to lie because you can't record the police. They're like entrapment roles pretending other because they keep the difference between the corruption of the police, the corruption of the exceptions nature tied to them, like the prisons tied to them, but also like the people that work for the prisons, like the people that investigate it. We're getting the different people roles with the uses of the difference between people who counter evils at prisons and then the people involved with it. Because measuring and maintaining is left out collusions with those names, with the location uses of databases information fake. Motivations planting. So you guys have predicate acts with facts roles. As Americans, we speak for law. Because that's one of the things, 208. Who denies it, especially too, if they're a lawyer, judge, and prosecutor, and agencies, foreign and domestic at the same time, which is what it is. That's why we have to get them on paper because they can't defend their logic and/or nor their nature or uses of the difference at the same time and afford discern what we are capable of discerning. We are capable of being where they are not. They are forced to spend orders and stay on finite things. We are capable of bringing forward the predicate acts they are not allowed to address with the World Trade Center predicate acts. The motivations as actually recorded. We're capable of forcing the quality of fact treatment nature. We're capable of forcing mandated law. Proper, but we have to do it without making someone to blame every time. Exactly the way they need to screen the hyper foreign body, which also comes with where and how they've been using the foreign body's roles with Central Connecticut State University and with Trinity College, increasingly involved with names with predicate acts on my street since I was a kid, and then against me there as the roles there, where and how he said, she said. These are prosecutors and judges criminally involved with locations before the World Trade Center attack, like Central Connecticut State University and West Hartford in New Britain and West Hartford locations, and the locations on all sides of it. As names, I've also been on Zion Street in Hartford next to Trinity College and on New Britain Avenue. Has something to do with both sides of New Britain Avenue. This is motivations for women judges. There's a Hartford Superior Court and Hartford Probate Courts. And there's a New Britain Superior Court and there's a Connecticut District Court. And there were a whole bunch of people on off the state of Connecticut judicial branch offices and names with conjunctions to that involved with natures of identity theft, frauds, and slanders, also in the form of federal evidences crimes rules, federal rules of evidences crimes rule, fake motivations planting with foreign bodies, wire crime acts and methods with Wethersfield police and people associated with them with other families with other police departments through time, involved with sequence shift planting, attaching little kids and their family members through time to fake locations, fake ties to other people, fake natures of ties to other people. Whole bunch of people tied to Wethersfield Pizza are involved with this. Please get the Wethersfield Pizza from the names forging and switching and wire crime acts and methods with them. Has something to do with their roles with Central Connecticut State University and people all along um, Hangdog Lane and Two Route Highway b- were influenced, forced, tricked, hurt, persuaded to spread lies and rumors about me, attach me to fake location, fake ties to other people, fake nature ties to other people, as roles with what I caught them with more first, with the principal child abuser. There are police families with the name Mendez and people associated with them with the name, and there are police families with the name DeMay who are also with Weathersfield Police involved with predicate acts with little kids, and with judges and prosecutors, with the CM Faglione family, and others on Hangdog Lane, recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed. Also with them involved with the corners of the street of the principal child abuser. And it involves another principal child. They involved with various natures of organized crime and federal evidence is crime, federal rules of evidence is crime, and natures of identity theft, frauds, and slanders, and fake motivations planting with foreign bodies. A principal, a principal, it's a Kevin Harris and a Kevin Harris's mother, and families' roles with the intelligence community. One's with the name Leahy, involved with predicate acts, attaching little kids to fake ties to doctors, fake conversations with doctors, fake natures of ties to their family members, and fake ties to their family members too, completely, because they were painted into corners, and because of how they use the location. Slash S everywhere the species body is, currently for influence, pretending other, measure to maintain self value needed by all kinds of interests and natures of criminal and seriousness nature, like wrongdoers, wrongdoing itself, wrongdoers, and wrongdoing itself. In other words, criminal enterprises themselves as criminal and seriousness natures. And we have to treat it as a criminal enterprise because of how it uses the groupings of names that leave out its path to itself, the hyper forensic trail, the hyper evidential. So, writing forensics has roles through time with the witness protection program and with various natures of criminal enterprises and names on of Central Connecticut State University have times roles with mayors and with their extended family members involved with Weathersfield locations originally and still, where George Washington had to counter extort and leave slavery entrenched and left us to demonstrate them roles with his torture, extortion, and why he had to counter extort them, and with his factory of nature slavery, and with that of James Madison and the other founders that, and James Madison, George Washington, how they had to counter extort the other founders. And everyone had to hide their actual roles by leaving fake things about themselves in databases to an extent. Otherwise, because the law is forced that. Otherwise, they force people to be sent through their own. Everywhere the species body is. When I say through their own, we're all systems now tactical terror from the hyper native one. Sometimes that's one of the reasons why people want to fight or have the audacity to argue with Native Americans. But to have that not discerned, that is also maintained. There's an evil hurting all differences and helping them at the same time exactly the way it needs to keep its identity of relationship to itself in all things, all subject treatment from being discerned is an inseparable part. Our breaching methods of identity of relationship to all things is an inseparable part from all parts of American history and from all parts of English history. Still, self value, criminal foreign influence tellings of it, tactically delusions raw, with exceptions that were employed by a breaching method that only allowed that to be remembered, to be capable of being otherwise fake integrity, with sense real integrity coming. Each science, each science's name. I played no game. Boxing only feels like games, so I said. So we can monetize this our top best boxing. We can make the borough's book and rules and begin the game. Then we could pass it on state to state. It gets get better, great. Then we could share our games. Space means come out of nowhere. Means to fix the bottoms of the economy. The worst of things, the nature of debate. We could use the great negatives for great positives. There's a difference between this preaching method employed. The real cause of negative value nature progression acts of natures. Blames on other things other than themselves. And while it's causing them, it's causing them for that. And because it knew. Nature's going to increasingly demonstrate there's a breaching method here. It's not just the foreign body's involvement. See the nature of negotiations, the value of peace, relative, no, to war. They left out relativity. Why is it relative to war? Why is it peace or war? Why they never leave the exceptions, exception nature? Breaching method came from was inseparable from what World War One and Two were about, wasn't it? This employed defenses of emotion and motivations for descriptions of the sciences and of their religions by the experts on it, the ones who know the most about it. Using that to get over on short words with convictions proper. Per the value only increasing of what came first. A breaching method was sustained against Native Americans. Readings of statutes were criminally foreign influence, tactically delusions raw, tactical material from nature. It would show us to read statutes. Us. The hyper additional name for a verb as a predicate, for example, so we can appreciate how everything is about the hyper additional nature. Everything is, even if it's made up. It is 1/3/5 identities of possession / hyper possession over all parts of anything made up individually, finite, and indistinctly, non-distinctly hyper things grouped. Not just the species volume. It's just because we are the species volume. There is the addition of that distinct identity of simultaneous nature that revealed why and how the humans have two eyes and other species bodies have two eyes. So I could lead us best, and other people they're going to talk about negotiations. They're going to talk about manners. They're going to try to talk about, and this is not to judge people. So they don't follow mandatory law. World Trade Center predicate acts and methods of them and motivations for it were recorded. Types of police forms, types of employments at courts, dealing with them. Those differences, that's involved. People who seat the juries are involved, create foreign influence. Descriptions of maps and differences between this part of the town, this town line, all that's involved. You guys don't listen to, you guys don't pay attention what's actually recorded on Facebook, and because the Facebook is being collusions with the names of all sides of criminal and civil cases. They have readings of statutes that leave out exceptions and exception nature how it works. So don't stay stupid jerks, because even the difference between how some ways Facebook family members, some way Facebook employees, some way the former director of the FBI himself and his lawyers and the different lawyers, Weatherfield Police, retired police chiefs, their lawyers, people involved with the sheriffs, involved with the and foreign and domestic military, involved with one with a Shumac, the name Shumac, involved with the Mike Pandoff, with interreligious spots, and with houses on corners involved with predicate acts, with teachers they had, with conversations that they had real or made up for them, because they're attaching everyone to fake to change communications. These are roles with criminal and civil cases, and with the lawyers, victims advocates, and the names interbranch at the same time, locking fake things in the databases, fake motivations with foreign bodies really involved with it, with all the names and all sides of that. They're all putting things at the same time. Even the doctors of the victims involved with this. Their databases are criminally foreign influence. They've been putting fake transcripts and databases, other tied to the courts, vaccines reports at the prisons too, on off the state corrections offices, on off state judicial branch offices. Our names involved with wire crime acts and methods in Weathersfield, and involved on off my street with that through time, as names who colluded with that intercities, planting fake motivations. See that people are constantly with um pretending, with instances of, they're constantly influencing people to go communicate with others. And they're leaving out all that people can discern the second they do that. Because, for example, those locations in New Britain were recorded, fast, demonstrated, confirmed, involved with people involved with my grammar school and with my middle school with criminal enterprises, with kids I didn't even have classes with, and with their teachers. Ones I had too, but I never had communications with them, putting fakes in databases, telling them things behind their back. Has something to do with the connections between the campuses, with them sticking little instances and then descriptions of them in each year connected. There are connections between them, and they were used in the World Trade Center attack. It is also the difference of the campuses involved. Central Connecticut State University has roles with the FBI director, former director of the FBI, Robert Luskin, former standing chairperson on the Racketeering Influence and Corrupt Organization Act, and there are names there with the name Carone. There are three people with the name Carone who are involved with sociology, and other people that have been planting evidence of identity thefts and frauds, with names also on my street and near me. And then they're lying about why would you be. I'm the one who wants, in other words, where people want privacy, they're lying about that. They lie about those motivations. You have to see the predicate acts methods that the people who control and their uses of control, the people who control questions, they're planting fake evidences to cover up how they did that in the past while they have been used remotely. These are medical offenders also with various natures of courts, personally and professionally criminally involved with them. Forgiveness is so we could deal with the actual acts because they come with foreign bodies. There are a whole bunch of foreign countries involved with foreign and domestic medical families and military families, and people pretending fake passions and emotions, including this is discernible when they are true. In other words, I made people call the police, gave them a real reason to. They used it to hide what came first, and to lie and to attach me to fake words with themselves. The people that were at the Hartford Hospital involved with this, they're involved since our founders left us to demonstrate. On the campus of Hartford Hospital, there's an Institute of Living that was founded on the campus of Hartford Hospital in 1822. They have roles with names next to the campuses through time intercity, who have been roles with identity thefts and frauds and slanders, furthering faked where there are furthering roles where there are uses of people who use the right to lie as the intelligence community where they don't have the right to lie, and as the exceptions tied to them, private, etc. All sides in criminal and civil cases, and the difference of the guilt of the interbranch at the same time. as the news planting evidences to prevent the quality of fact, human nature, and the revelation from being revealed. That, in other words, they want to keep evolution and natures of debate and perceptions of that sick. So follow mandated law for your branches of government. Interstates, America. In intercities, Connecticut. Let's go. Fix them switching and forging names. That's an important thing to understand. All along roads and routes. These are people with the differences between the police forms, also with the how mixed with the police departments involved, with Weathersfield Police Department, Rocky Hill Police Department, and Newington Police Department. And they're not legitimately hiding and preventing people from knowing their names because they brought them up and they're switching names. So follow mandated law for them and get them onto paper, one name and sequence. These are Judge Napolitano's sources. Wars worse than war crimes. So you see how they use that sick method of pretending it's against Jewish people when Palestinians you say that they want from the river to the sea. Of course, that's how the nature works. If you're not working with fresh water, right, you guys are sick. Torture method, extortion method, slavery method. So you guys are all still enslaved. Fact, human nature, quality aspects A through Z with difference, with our uses of our names. You ask why one of the evidences is how you left out how we employed natural differences and uses of names A through Z. Tactile from how natural. How we have black peoples and white survivors at the same time. All that was left out with the preaching method. What is in its place? All they're being told. All because people pretend passions and emotions. The interreligious cliques are pretending passions and emotions, where there are exceptions too. That's being used remotely too, with the foreign bodies involvement. They have they have they have serious things that unfold. People are getting murdered and killed. Then they can't go back and be honest about what happened, about what is good about people and what is bad about people. But don't forget, you guys still have that rules with that breaching method that has the identity of slander. Identity theft, fraud, slander against our founders, sickly distinctly against everyone else with black people's rights of eyes each. Sickly distinctly to keep out how sickly non distinctly, that's also measurable. People, oh, I never thought about that. Where's that read? Our founders left us to demonstrate that people are using evidences dishonestly and to communicate about the hyper evidential. We have black people's rights of eyes. Let them speak. Then they need to pretend politics means what it doesn't. That's why they had things in the wars in the past that are relative. And they're quote, well, look, what this general said with this war, I'm using my knowledge of good and evil. In other words, quote the Constitution unabridged if you want to quote something. Fix the mandated law, the predicate acts with facts rules. We have black people's right to rise. Knock, knock, Republic. Romulus is home. Yeah. All you have to do is force them to follow mandated law. Americans, YouTubers. Everyone, please get out. Judge Mel Napolitano. I asked him to get Connecticut into branch. I begged him to get Connecticut branch onto paper, one name and sequence. They have roles with the Facebook pages of the campuses with interbranch family members with foreign and domestic medical families who are also involved with overt criminal enterprises and private ones with conscious uses of sticking fake things in databases, even of the youngest campuses, and between them, and connections of that off campuses collusions to lock that in. So they know this. Follow mandated law for your branch of government. Weathersfield Police Chief Cintron. A whole bunch of people recorded confessed history confirmed along Ridge Road. Involved also with a Violet family with medical corruption with kids, sequence shifts, and with an O'Brien family with a Hartford police families, Weathersfield Police, Rocky Hill Police Department families, retired standing in Newington. Now these are people with military police Also, KKK, Confederate flag theme, and black theme involved with switching names. The interbranch preventing writing, lying about their motivations with foreign bodies. They attached me and others to fake conversations about the World Trade Center attack. Me and others who were in the World Trade Center attack context right before it, in the Ninth Circuit Court right next to it, in the motel or hotel next to it the night before. And their foreign Weathersfield police have recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed roles through time with people with the name Scalora, and they have extended family members of theirs, reportedly the extended members of theirs named Demoro, and confirmed by themselves that, and rolls with them with predicate acts and with names with the intelligence near me, involved with the Weathersfield police, with other police forms switching and forging names and planting evidences and fake motivations on all sides of my house and all sides of their houses. There was a Jewish, I believe she was Jewish. I believe that's what she said regarding one of the domain members with the intelligence community on Fox Connecticut News. They have roles with sexual and interreligious sense and sensibilities groups that are planting evidences with fake ties and fake natures of ties to strangers, and where roles with overtly used and slash insidiously used investigators, and uses of campuses, mixed with as collusions with off campuses crime scenes and natures of organized crime bodies, and timed collusions with them with sequential federal evidence crimes, child abuses, elderly abuses, veterans abuses. Have you seen how the veterans buildings are designed? The way stacking was designed in cities, while the negative value nature progressions, acts in nature as demonstrated by nature towards suburbs, were coupled with the breaching method employing the only means nature progressions, acts in nature more and more, if people would self-value criminal and seditious natures of means to cause the value nature progressions, acts in natures as collusions with the negatives against everyone, and with the differences of their roles, and because the breaching method has roles, and the breaching method knew, and as nature demonstrates, it knew nature was going to demonstrate itself. Nature increasingly has demonstrations of the presence of a singular breaching method with the subjects we know of our country's histories. So we have not been allowed to have seriousness to attend with where and how we have black people's right to lie. Obviously, this is what more probably what yin yang is about. Is more probably about the Constitution unabridged. But the people who speak for the Constitution can't afford to have that discerned because they were backed into when they were little kids, blaming other things, others themselves, where and how they had means to correlate, using how sickly distinctly the Native Americans as a volume of humanity, as a name of humanity heard sickly distinctly, to hide how sickly non distinctly that had been sustained. Then our founders were born. Witch trials were manifest. Crazy laws, tactically ulterior from what we long to do and we have possible with Earth, its identity, relation to itself, and the value of that. Oh, that's going to leave all the resorts with no one wanting to go to the resort. We'll have paradise everywhere. That's the point, man. We still have nature, still needs us to discern where and how the phenomena. It's almost like the other name, each name as a country's name has a little bit other name that is the possession of the others by nature. But see, this mimic of nature. So where and how that's a good thing, that's prevented from being discerned. People want to stay nature as criminal citizens, nature. Positive treatments or negative treatments, they're collusion. Its identity of relationship to itself as a conjunction to positive and negative treatments with Boolean logic, with appreciations of lists by intelligence community and by artificial intelligence communities, and by their value treatments, their opinions by that, their styles of logic. They can't defend themselves and afford to protract short words that are true always and speaking for difference in convictions based on revelations that come with appreciation of that distinct identity of hyper simultaneous nature that comes with where and how we are sequence slash simultaneous nature. And we are simultaneously simultaneous nature slash sequence nature. Where and how shown the order of things, the course by which boxing, martial arts, and wrestling, they share an identity grouped. It is easy to discern. So we can discern the identity the sciences share. Where and how they appear not to is where and how increasingly, constantly, nature is demonstrating it uses exception nature with the ways we know, but in ways hyper additional to this. And when it comes down to it, this preaching method made people paint fake exception nature, made them self value that. That's what you're doing with your logic. We deny the value of someone for telling. I'm recorded overtly slash insidiously simultaneously. Uses of black people's white survive as hyper evidential evidences. And with the directions of how our founders directed us to deal with how they were tortured and extorted honestly. And if we do that honestly, telling truth always, and then not being debated, that reveals that they wanted us to teach about how they were sickly, non-distinctly enslaved to factory nature or sensed. If they tried to counter finite things about it, group things about it, or simultaneous. See, Campus Marcius, that's free. The campus of the ancients, again, must be. We can make a YouTube video, a collaboration. So we could just keep stocking memes. All I have to do is claim the system abridged and not blame it on other things others, but the breaching method. Because that's one thing that there's a whole bunch of ways we could blame, a whole bunch of things we could blame on the breaching method and syntactically use that to simultaneously leverage where and how everybody, everywhere the species body is. We know that we're in systems that since ancient times have been abridged. So there are people that are going to speak for what we agree about that are lying. And they've been roles that we didn't have classes with. Then people we were in classes with at each age and then at college, there were connections made to them. Even if you go to another state or country, there are differences too. We're involved with that. See, they make treatments of criminal enterprises, groupings of people involved with predicate acts, for example. People involved with criminal and as criminal and serious nature. But our branches of government have roles with predicate acts and criminal and serious nature too, didn't they? And don't they? They want to have their difference from the overt criminal enterprises, private ones, and the insidiousness of people A through Z, and people with the witch trials left out. We're not supposed to do that. We're supposed to show how that difference was used by a breaching method to screen its own. So making a difference to hide behind. Roles need to hide, they hide roles with it. When you think and you leave out, or force other people to leave out, the evidence is we have black people, we have the same color eyes, different color eyes at the same time. The color white and black meant other than the law, other than they pretended that was their motivations for writing other than the law. They left out the breaching method was right there. Then they want to fight about that screening it as a breaching screen. That means tools and weapons and worse. So you guys have reading you guys are fake patriotism nature. Only people are gonna make it through wars gonna be the fake punks that inclusions with them. Increasingly pretended patriotism nature because they sacrificed whatever their collusions with the World Trade Center attack. Fix the fake conversations with me about the World Trade Center attack. WFSB, please. And Trinity College. Let's get this Joshua Stryker onto paper. He's involved with people with predicate acts and with poisons and guns. That he's involved with it, and he's involved with identity thefts and fraud, slanders against me since I was a kid. Joshua Stryker, and with people forging and switching names with courts and planting evidences on campuses before the World Trade Center attack. Then in the context and sense, they also have roles with a Terry Clezo, and his brother, and people on Ponside with untimely death, and with a Robert Rodriguez with the intelligence community, putting fake passions and emotions and narratives and backgrounds with investigators being used remotely, criminally foreign influence, roles with untimely deaths, and then again through time, with the same locations involved. Even if they made the whole things up and all of it, they have roles with predicate acts with facts, and further with the child abuser principle I caught them with, and some of them with their own kids with the intelligence community, foreign and domestic mix. They have timed roles with use of corners of streets involved. Something to do, people tied to planting evidences along Griswold Street with the families tied to judges like this Joshua Stryker involved with planting evidences with judges in the databases with overt criminal enterprises, private ones, and and medical families, foreign and domestic, including sexual offenders, as women roles with them. Follow mandated law for them. Stop pretending people make conspiracy theories. This is one of the things that our country had roles with torture before the World Trade Center attack, where they were motivated to be little charities and stay there. Fix the fake conversations with me, WFSB, and get your interbranch sources onto paper with you. One name in sequence. Do good job, reporter. Leave the rest of the people who did that show what they did and do. And get your sources, your interbranch sources on paper with them. On paper, let's go. Get me off the fake conversations with your journalist. You got I forgot his name, Roger Suzanne, and he looks like another guy covering stories on Weathersfield Police Department, real or made up, where there's a picture of him. It appears that he shot someone through a window. The news has roles with predicate acts with Weathersfield Pizza and with the various departments of Central Connecticut State University, intercities through time, and intelligence community intercampuses Weatherfield. And I never saw Maria Vazina on a campus in my life. Her name was repeated to me with a Joshua Julian. His name is also one of the ones. Joshua Julian is one of the ones on Facebook involved with child offenders, also with foreign and domestic medical families, and judges and prosecutors speaking fake things into databases, and with the people inclusions on Facebook with child sex offenders forced while they're pretending fake motivations ties to people. Joshua Julian also has roles with other natures of predicate acts and spying on me on my street and threats on my street with the intelligence community. And these are people involved with Sandy Hook, with child abusers, intercities, on and off campuses, and with their Facebook pages, and with the judges pretending to be against it, so they can't be legitimate with. These are also people on all the state judicial branch offices, out of the state corrections offices. So this is hyper algorithmic too. They have narratives and defenses of descriptions of algorithms that leave out exceptions, exception nature. To know, follow mandated law for them, please, and have mandate. And I'm reporting this to Judge Napolitano. Make sure he understands that they've been forging and switching names and using wire crime acts and methods as the police forms and people tied to them who've been planting evidences on my street and on everyone around everyone and next to them. They lied to my neighbors about me through time too, on and off campuses, and on and off their religious locations. There's phenomena how I can show you that recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed, how that's exploited, how they bring up sexual and things like that with confessions. This is uses of confessions sickly distinctly by the breaching method, and it keeps rolls with it, including the church. And the church knew this though. See, we're supposed to interpret the Quran in the Old Testament with and as qualities of fact, meter, and with and as nature that we have been not allowed to appreciate because of the forced appreciation of criminal insidiousness natures of positive treatments and or negative treatments and the conclusions of them. Because they're showing us, they're hiding from us what nature shows us its identity in relation to itself, and the value of that nature. And then further, the breaching method too. Nature's identity and the breaching method's identity. They're both left out while self valued and used remotely. Our uses of names. I play no games. So our campuses make and locations names themselves make combustions other than they could afford. They didn't have to lie about their motivation. So the fire campuses intercity, they already leaked, and people tied to them leaked it because they leak things. Then people show other attached. So the fire campuses they also not right down the street from a religious spot and at the same time, and a mall at the same time, and those differences are used everywhere. Those differences are manifest, and where how they are together there. These are people involved with foreign and domestic military and databases tied to them and interreligious because they have that used as one of the things where they cover life progression because it's exploited the difference of the corruption there at the formal locations, including at the branch or the crime scenes or the parks where people were taking pictures next to each other. People took pictures of kids next to each other so they could pretend they communicated other than they did. And they would pretend they were in places before that they never were. Pretend there was communication before that there was never was. And their uses of that has something to do with their roles with the buildings next to the state capitol, increasingly involved with identity theft, fraud, slander. They invested themselves through entire lifetimes per this method that has been through lifetimes. This was here before our founders were born, black people. Stop wasting our time. Please follow mandated law for Connecticut into branch. Fox News, please do what's right. CNN, do what's right. I'll show you how I'll delineate the delusions from their criminally foreign influence souls. The courts involved with you guys criminally with Paul Manafort Drive and stories there and readings of statutes. These are people involved with child offenders and people that work. They're training people to work for prisons and for the military and for the technology, like and with databases and with police force. The criminally foreign info technically delusions raw, and they list all their names and then they pretend we're saying everyone's evil. They brought that up. Follow mandated law for them. Before the World Trade Center attack, in that context, and since every year, they've been offensively making things up for me, against me, because of their roles with the names leading up to it in that were used remotely. And then since to hide that, they were used. The World Trade Center is involved with all kinds of trade agreements that can't defend themselves they can't defend themselves and rolls with it, with the logic with them and with the corruption associated with it and use of those locations, and have lost at the same time from things like the World Trade Center attack. So they value roles with it. So they value roles with being able to hide behind the counters, which was also a collusion with a coalition that is used remotely when not themselves or their motives too. The breaching method keeps blamed on other things other than themselves. Where and how it has complete possessions slash hyper possession over the summaries of our American history, over the summaries of our founders, not the ones who, not the ones who had to be counter stories. No, that's distinct. See, those people are involved with Wethersfield locations. Wethersfield, Connecticut, right before the last battle of the Revolutionary War, it was the last of 13 positions that had to be counter extorted to force a unity. Still criminally foreign influence, tactically delusions raw. Still with slavery north and south, but at least capable of winning the last battle of the Revolutionary War and of gaining to a more capable nature of unity, even though still criminally foreign influence, tactically delusions raw. So now to be capable of free speech to end this and to reveal means out of nowhere. Evolution's fruits and gifts. Republic's game slash F's. Evolution science only feels like games. Predicate acts are no games. So we're going to deal with the predicate acts with facts and we're going to deal with them that way, black people. Many pray. Box eggs, fake branches fold and fall. Build wall. Yeah. Campus Marcy is rising. Here, see. It will set you free.